If you're a regular viewer of the channel, you probably know that Assassin's Creed Valhalla and I don't exactly have the warmest relationship, but no matter the game, whether it's a masterpiece, a decent game or a bit of a mess, there is always something worth celebrating, and that's true for Valhalla as well. Despite all of my criticisms, I'm not blind to the fact that there were things that Ubisoft genuinely got right with this game. That's what this video is about. I'm thinking of making this into a series for pretty much every game in the franchise, so we'll see how it goes. With that said, let's dive into what Assassin's Creed Valhalla did right. Do remember that these are all my opinions, and you may have an entirely different perspective on Valhalla to me. One more thing before we get into it, I have a Patreon. Now first and foremost, you don't need to become a member at all, it's entirely optional, but if you do want to support me massively and also gain access to seeing early future videos, behind the scenes projects, exclusive polls, shoutouts in every video and more, then do consider becoming a member of my Patreon. I'll leave a link down in the description below. With all of that said, let's get back into the video. When it comes to the story of Assassin's Creed Valhalla, it's no secret that I'm not its biggest fan. But I'm not saying the story is so terrible that it's unplayable either. My main issue with the story has always been that it drags on for way too long, and I do think most people would agree on that. You ever see that drawing of a horse where it starts off really well and then progressively gets worse? That concept applies to Valhalla. To be honest, the main positive I can point out about the story is the prologue. This is one of the most memorable parts of the game. It pulls you in right from the start with a strong sense of purpose and clear motivations that keep you hooked for the first few hours. The actual intro scene that's motion captured and executed very well is probably the best looking cutscene in this game, and that's pretty understandable considering the prologue is what's meant to hook us into the game. But as the game moves beyond the prologue and into the larger story set in England, it starts to lose steam and coherence, making the rest of the story feel less engaging. What makes the prologue so effective is how it sets up a personal vendetta for Eivor against Kjotve the Cruel, who's responsible for killing Eivor's parents. While the revenge angle is not exactly groundbreaking or original, let's be honest, it's delivered with a lot of intensity and emotional weight. The showdown with Kjotve, especially when Eivor calls for a traditional Viking duel, creates a powerful cinematic moment that stands out quite a lot. Following that, the raid on Kjotve's fortress keeps that momentum going, and then there's a memory corridor scene with Kjotve and Odin, which adds on to how great this prologue was. Kjotve's very dark view of life, that all human efforts are ultimately pointless, could have set the stage for a more profound exploration of Eivor's character. It hints at a more, deeper, more philosophical storyline where Eivor questions the meaning of all his fighting and raiding. But unfortunately, this potential is mostly wasted in the rest of the game. Once the story shifts to England, it starts to lose its focus. The emotional drive from the prologue fades, and you find yourself jumping between a bunch of shallow connected quests to build alliances, but without the same compelling motivations. When I first played through the modern day in Valhalla, I didn't really care too much about it, but looking back at it now, the modern day in Valhalla is actually quite good, especially when you compare it to what we've had since Desmond's era from Assassin's Creed 3. Black Flag and Rogue were ass, Unity and Syndicate were ass, Origins was ass, Odyssey was okay, and Valhalla's was quite good. Maybe you can make the argument that it's the best we've seen since AC3. For a lot of people, the modern day segments have been hit or miss since then. Major plot points, like Juno's story, were moved to the comics. However, Valhalla seems to bring a fresh approach that combines what worked in the past with some exciting new elements. One of the things that makes Valhalla's modern day story feel different is how it blends with the rest of the game. It does not force you out of the animus as much as the past games did. Instead, it lets you explore the modern day world at your own pace. This means you can dive deep into the lore if you want to, or you can focus more on the main Valhalla story. It even brings back familiar faces like Sean Hastings and Rebecca Crane, and it feels less intrusive, allowing you to choose how much you want to engage with it. It's also a modern day that's not self-contained. It connects to the past games, from AC3 all the way through to Odyssey and its DLC. It gives you that kind of sense of continuity and payoff. Valhalla also sets up a new direction for the series. Spoiler warning in about 3 seconds, so be prepared. The story that started with Origins and continued through Odyssey finds resolution in Valhalla, as we now see the end of Layla's story, but it also lays the groundwork for what's to come with Basim now being the new modern day protagonist. Even the introduction of a character known as the Reader, which is meant to be Desmond, hints at a bigger, more interconnected story for the future. Maybe that's what we'll see in the new Assassin's Creed Infinity Hub that they've got going on. We're gonna need to know more information about that. The gear system in Valhalla is one of the game's best features, and to be honest, it's something that Valhalla did right. I could genuinely perhaps see the future RPG games following this style. Unlike the games before, being Odyssey, where we'd be overwhelmed with lots of loot that often got sold or ignored, Valhalla focuses more on having fewer but more meaningful pieces of gear. This approach makes every piece of armor and weapon feel special, and you actually have to think twice about what to wear and where to get it. You see, in Valhalla, you don't find new gear every few minutes. Instead, you come across fewer items, but each one has its own lore or description to it, and also unique traits. When you find a new weapon or a piece of armor, it feels like a pretty big moment, not just another item to throw away like we do in Odyssey. I'd say this setup encourages you to put effort into upgrading and customizing your favorite gear, which adds to a sense of progress throughout the game. There's also the transmog system, which yes, it's also in Odyssey, but I feel like Valhalla does it better, as you can quite literally wear nothing and play the game like that, showing off Eivor's tattoos. Valhalla also does a great job of making the upgrades feel rewarding. You know, as you improve your weapons and armor, they also change in appearance, becoming more impressive. You can tell a lot of thought definitely went into that aspect of upgrading gear, because this not only makes you feel stronger as a player, but it also lets you see your character's growth visually. Another feature that I liked about the gear system is the runes. There's just an abundance of them, and each one can affect your gear in so many different ways. More damage, less damage taken, fire resistance, poison resistance, and so on. It's good for making different builds for different playstyles. There is also the fact that Valhalla's gear system avoids the problem that many games have, where you must choose between style and function. You can keep the gear that you like and upgrade it so it remains useful throughout the game. This means you don't have to wear mismatched or unattractive gear just because it has better stats, which I personally feel is a big improvement. Maybe you could say the variety in gear needed to be a bit more, but the focus on fewer but more meaningful items is a step in the right direction. By prioritizing quality over quantity, the game shifts attention from endless inventory management to real progression. So yeah, I'd say the gear system in Valhalla strikes a balance that many RPG games struggle to find. Now, don't get this confused with the skill tree, because I'm definitely not talking about that. The skill tree in Valhalla is abysmal, and it looks like a massive spiderweb mess. For this one, I'm referring to the abilities. Now, the ability system feels like it hits the perfect balance for gameplay. Valhalla makes the process of getting certain skills more engaging and rewarding by having you actively hunt for books of knowledge scattered throughout the game world. What's great about this system is it has a sense of adventure and exploration. You're not just mindlessly gaining points. You have to explore the game's pretty big world to find these hidden books. Each book gives you a new ability, like a unique move or an attack, that you can equip and use in combat. It's like finding hidden treasure that directly impact your combat style. The abilities themselves are a lot of fun to use and offer plenty of variety. For example, the Harpoon Impalement lets you throw enemies into walls or off ledges, and with an upgrade you can even pull enemies towards you for some crazy finishing moves. Another example is the Dive of the Valkyries. This ability is great for crowd control, letting you leap into a group of enemies and smash them into the ground. You see, each ability feels unique and purposeful, giving you options that fit different playstyles, whether you like to be up close and personal or prefer to fight from a distance. I also feel like when it comes to the abilities, one of the best parts about this system is how they evolve as you play. Each ability has two tiers. Finding the first book of knowledge unlocks it, while a second book upgrades it to a stronger version. Once again, exploration is encouraged here, especially to find new books to make your favorite abilities even better. Another thing that Valhalla did very well is in the memory corridors. This is one of those brilliant features that makes a return after being completely gone in Odyssey, and boy are they back in style. These moments are kind of a throwback to the classic Assassin's Creed games, where after landing that final blow on a target, time slows down, and the protagonist gets a chance to share a final moment with their enemy. It's a simple mechanic, but for a simple mechanic it adds so much depth to the game. Valhalla brings these moments back, making them some of the most compelling scenes in the entire game. First off, these memory corridors are incredibly well executed in terms of choreography and motion capture. The mocap team did a phenomenal job capturing the weight of those last moments between Eivor and their targets. It feels pretty much real, raw and powerful. Even the writing behind each of these scenes. In these moments, Eivor would often encounter Odin, who serves as this haunting voice, pushing and pulling Eivor in different directions, questioning their choices and motives. In a way, Odin being there is like this dark shadow looming over Eivor's decisions, making them reflect on what it means to take a life in the name of revenge or justice. In Assassin's Creed Odyssey, you never really got that moment of reflection after a kill. It was all action and moving on to the next thing. But in Valhalla, these scenes slow things down and make you listen to the consequences of your actions. So yeah, the memory corridors are, in my personal opinion, something that Valhalla did quite well in. Another thing that Assassin's Creed Valhalla did right is in its callbacks. Now what I mean by that is callbacks to previous Assassin's Creed games in the franchise. The game is filled with these little nods or winks to past characters and stories that I guess you can say is nostalgia fuel. One of the best examples is how they bring Desmond Miles back into the story. For those that started with the original games, hearing Desmond's voice again is like a nostalgic punch to the heart. You can find an audio file on Layla's laptop, and it's Desmond speaking, voiced by the original actor Nolan North. It's a simple moment, but it's quite powerful. And this isn't the only example. The game also makes references to Origins, with the reader telling a tale in Ravensthorpe that directly connects to the characters and events from Origins. One of the coolest parts is how they brought back Desmond's character as the reader. Instead of pulling a bizarre revival or retcon, Valhalla continues Desmond's story in a way that feels organic and true to the series. Even though Desmond's physical body is gone, he still has a presence in the game. The way they reintroduce him is clever and respectful. He's not just back for the sake of it, he serves a purpose, pushing the modern day story forward while still honouring his past and the sacrifices that he made. There's also a callback to AC3, so when Eivor goes to Vinland, the game connects Eivor's journey to the Kanien'kehá:ka tribe, which you'll also remember as Connor's tribe. In the Jotunheim arc of Valhalla, there's a moment when Harvey, or Odin, looks into a mysterious portal that's meant for speaking with future souls, and after waiting a while, a familiar voice eventually answers. That familiar voice is indeed Ezio Auditore.
Who are you? Who are you?
Just hearing Ezio's voice again, even for a brief moment, it's like a rush of nostalgia. So yeah, callbacks are something that this game did well in. This one might be considered hit or miss for many people, but for me, I feel like the combat system was something that Valhalla did very well in. It certainly is a lot better compared to Origins, Odyssey and Mirage, and I can confidently say that. One of the best things about the combat is the variety of weapon types and the flexibility it offers. You can mix and match different weapons, from dual wielding axes to using a spear and shield combo. Each combination comes with unique animations and moves, keeping the combat from feeling repetitive, which is something I cannot say the same for when it comes to Odyssey. There's also the button mapping for attacks and skills, which is so well designed, making it easy to execute complex moves, parries and dodges, especially on a controller. I'm not sure about keyboard and mouse, but for controllers, it feels very responsive and fluid, which is something that not every game achieves. The addition of small details like automatically leaning when crouching, or the ability to chain attacks creatively adds depth to the combat. It's also pretty good that skills have both active and passive elements, which changes how you approach battles depending on what you unlock and equip. Now, while the combat is certainly a strong point, I won't deny that it's not without some flaws. The enemy AI, for example, leaves a lot to be desired. Sometimes enemies seem clueless or slow to react, which can make fights feel less challenging than they should be. But despite this, Valhalla nails the visceral feel of combat. Every hit feels impactful, and finishing moves are both brutal and satisfying to pull off. The game's combat system is not just a button mashing mess like Syndicate or Odyssey. It actually rewards timing and knowing when to dodge, parry or go all in. And that brings me to the end of today's video. Now, do remember that a lot of what I said in this video is my personal opinion from my thoughts on Valhalla. There may be a few more things that I haven't mentioned that I simply cannot think of, so let me know in the comments below if there's other things that Valhalla did right in your opinion. I do hope to expand this video series by talking about every other AC game, because believe it or not, every AC game, whether it's good or bad, has things that they did right and wrong. Maybe Assassin's Creed Odyssey is the one I'll do next. Anyway, if you did enjoy this video, be sure to hit that subscribe button, and with that said, I'll see you in the next one.